Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
It's been a very cloudy weekend and it makes me sad.
It has been cloudy. I hadn't really thought about that today. It
Yeah.
was yesterday for sure.
All day yesterday.
When I was driving back I worked yesterday. When I was driving back, there were rain clouds in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to rain pretty hard this week, actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Kind of up and down the coast and all the way into here.
Mm.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you doing?
Good. I haven't really been doing much this weekend. I binge watched a show called The Circle on Netflix, which, oh my God.
It was
Y'all
something.
know how I go on these spirals about social media. The idea of it is you have these people who are playing this game and they're in this thing called The Circle, and it's kind of like reality TV, typical Big Brother-esque show, except each person has their own apartment and they can only communicate with each other through text. So there's a circle chat and then they can DM each other, and it's crazy. I mean, it's all the things that you would expect it to be like. It was, in my opinion, less dramatic than other reality TV that I've consumed. But I could not stop watching it.
It was a lot. It was a lot.
Well, because they get these alerts, and it's not there's some regular things they have to rank each other, but
people could fake who
there
they
are
were
other
too.
challenges. Yeah, some people were catfishing, and
it.
it was real interesting.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's what I did this weekend. real productive member of society right here.
Solid weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? How's your life going? Just same usual.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
I'm hopeful that the weather stays nice, gets nice. But
oh yeah, it was
right.
80 the other day, 80 degrees, and
it was super nice.
Wanted to jump in the pool.
Yeah, I was pretty hot actually.
Yeah,
body definitely hasn't adjusted yet. But no, I mean, really nothing else going on.
Spring is coming.
Spring is coming. Yeah. That'll be good times.
Well, I keep laughing because I keep thinking about our friends in Michigan, because we lived in Michigan, and it's the fake spring where you have a day and you're yes, and then it's oh no, it's freezing again, or maybe it'll snow.
Again,
yeah. It'll snow in May.
A couple of weeks ago, there was a crazy weather thing in my former hometown or nearby.
Oh.
Where it was super cold and rainy, and then it got really windy, and there were some houses to the south of Buffalo that you should look up photos, actually. Though I didn't do clear enough research to make sure that they're real, but it was fascinating. There were sheet of ice around people's houses. It was pretty crazy. Could be fake. I don't know. But if it's not, it was crazy. And if it was, that's awesome photoshopping. But yeah, no. It should be good. I think spring here is going to be really nice. Yeah. Everything's starting to bloom. Tons of great flowers.
Yesterday, we watched a part of Chamber of Secrets.
Yes, we did. You wanted to.
I was I keep talking about the differences between the book and the movie. I just have to see them. I was wrong about the McGonagall scene, but it did play out differently. So Filch was the one that was there instead of Snape being the one that was there.
Oh my, we are in trouble, aren't we? Something like that.
Little Ron.
Yeah. And he breaks his wand on the steering wheel as opposed to in the crash.
He goes and then it just breaks, and I'm wait, how sturdy are these things? Come on, how do you break it on the steering wheel?
Well, it's funny because the genre of the movie is almost slapsticky.
Yeah,
right. It's
particularly with Ron's character.
Yeah,
because that's why I think that's what shaped
the train coming up behind him.
Yes.
And then Harry's near death falling out of the car.
Yeah, Harry's just hanging by the car door, and Ron's grab my hand, and he's
you're too sweaty or something, and it's what is happening right now?
I think that's why my image of Ron is so tainted, as he's such a klutz. He does some weird things in the book, but the movie, he's just goofball. He's just not. He's just the comic relief.
I'm petting Winston under the table.
Oh
with
my
foot.
gosh, Winston needs attention as always.
He has been baby central, but yeah,
he is a baby.
It's pretty good. I'm excited. We paused at this chapter actually
because I wanted to see the scene where so last chapter Draco calls Hermione a mudblood, and I wanted to see that scene that I was referencing where Emma Watson does the monologue where she explains what a mudblood is, because she knows and Ron is just busy looking like he's dying and puking
Oh
up
my
slugs.
gosh, yeah, Ron looks horrendous.
That makeup, man.
They nailed it.
Yeah.
But it was good, yeah, and it got me in the mood to think about this chapter for sure.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. Juan's ready. Turn to page 122, The Deathday Party.
Mm-hmm.
Today's lesson is called Sense and Sensitivity, which is,
Yeah, I get it.
well, for the audience.
I get the reference.
Think about it. A synopsis. The chapter begins with Harry walking through Hogwarts soaked to the bone after a rainy Quidditch practice when he comes across Nearly Headless Nick, who is upset after being rejected from the Headless Hunt. As he tries to console Nick, Mrs. Norris and then Filch discover Harry tracking mud through the castle. Filch demands Harry come to his office for punishment, but leaves quickly when Peeves creates a ruckus outside. As Harry waits, he finds Kwikspell in Filch's papers. Filch returns and is devastated and embarrassed, and kicks Harry out of his office. It turns out that Nick had gotten Peeves to create a distraction to help Harry, who agrees to go to Nick's 500th Death Day celebration on Halloween in return. Later, Ron and Hermione accompany Harry to the Death Day party and witness some amazing scenes. They meet Myrtle, the Headless Hunt members, and interact with Nick and Peeves. As they leave, Harry hears the same chilling, threatening voice as from his time in Lockhart's office. He tracks it with Ron and Hermione in tow until they come across a frightening message written on the wall in blood above a frozen Mrs. Norris.
Mm-hmm. You just made me think. I wanted to keep track of my thought process as you were reading.
I'm glad. Yeah, of course. I do the same thing all the time. What were you thinking about?
Oh no, I was just thinking about Filch. Yeah. So like one of the first things that I wrote down was like this Kwikspell thing. And so something I noted was Harry's inner monologue was, why on earth did Filch want a Kwikspell course? Did this mean he wasn't a proper wizard?
Right.
And I was like, oh my God. So we had just had this
Half-blood.
whole thing. Yes, all this stuff about blood, this shot at Hermione. And like Harry, who has no idea really about the blood relationships and hierarchies until like he's starting to form it, like comes to this thought of this idea of like proper wizard. Like even though it's not necessarily like in a malicious way, like Malfoy, who is like intentionally trying to harm Hermione with his words or thoughts, that you can see like glimpses of like, oh, okay, Harry's taking some of this up at least, of like even constructing an idea of a proper wizard and not a proper wizard.
Yeah, and he would have some ideas from the Muggle world as well that are similar. So I think, yeah, that line this reading really stuck out to me as well, that he thinks of it as proper wizard as opposed to just thinking about it in terms of like maybe it means Filch is a
Enhancement or,
squib.
like-
Like just to put like the kind of term to it as opposed to thinking of it in terms of like proper or not.
Oh, I was thinking in terms of like just additional support. Like you just take it as additional support, not like a no, you're not a real wizard. Not
Right.
that it's that harsh in the language, but that's how it reads to me in terms of like if you're
Well, I'll
proper
have to
or
say,
not.
like, I think I won't be certain about this, but British vernacular, I think proper would mean like real to some extent. But yeah, I thought this chapter offered Harry a lot of opportunities to be sensitive. That's why I titled it that way, like to other beings. And it started off even immediately with the idea of Ginny being bullied by Percy. I noticed that J.K. Rowling specifically says that word. It's just in passing about like Ginny taking the pepper up potion because she wasn't looking good or whatever. And like it says like she was bullied by Percy into taking it or whatever. And I was like, this is very interesting. Like what a specific word choice and like somewhat loaded. I don't know, maybe less loaded at the time that she wrote it, but now it definitely would be.
I wonder if it's supposed to be some sort of nod to something
Percy?
later.
Yeah.
Or
I'm
like
not
the
sure.
word choice of like Ginny being bullied or being forced into something.
Or the sense that she knew that she wasn't actually sick with a cold, something else. But yeah, so that, and then Nick and like the Headless Hunt and like then Filch with the Kwikspell and then Myrtle with Peeves. Like there were just all these interactions where Harry was somewhat of a passenger for a lot of them.
Yeah, he was, for sure.
Which was a little frustrating, with the exception of maybe Nick to some extent. Like we could hear his internal monologue trying to figure out how to react, because he just wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Like being in the Headless Hunt or things like that. That it kind of goes also, I thought my favorite quote that I wrote is somewhat related, because I've always loved the imagery of like ghosts creating like really potent things in order to like try to remember or whatever.
To taste or
can you taste it if you walk through it? Harry asked him. Almost, said the ghost sadly, and he drifted away. I just always love that imagery of like what they're trying to do to like remember, and like it's kind of it's another opportunity to be sensitive to like, I mean, being a ghost, like I don't know if it ever really comes out in the lore of Harry Potter if somebody can stop being a ghost. I'm not sure. But it's pretty, if they can't, it's like, whoa, that's crazy. Like that's what a way to like
this
exist.
Is his 500th death day.
I know.
So that's a long time. Yeah, it is. Yeah, so when you were reading your summary, the thing that I wrote down was, so like thinking about being sensitive was, so we know Filch, or like the description of Filch is just kind of like he overreacts, or he's like very strict and very kind of like controlling with the students. And so the fact that he kind of freaks out because Harry is like walking mud through the castle and is like having this whole thing. As you were talking, what crossed my mind that didn't cross my mind before was, what if Filch was trying to do something with Kwikspell and was failing at it, was just like grumpy about it, and then like,
well, I think that they were definitely related in the sense that like the reason it sticks in Filch's craw, because he even says like it's hours for me to have to clean it up or whatever. He says that too. And then like the first line of the Kwikspell ad is something like, is it taking you hours to do things that like it should take you? I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something very similar. And the juxtaposition to me was totally on purpose to say like, this is part of why Filch like has all this baggage and anger, because he's surrounded by people learning magic. And he wants to be able to know it at that level. Yeah. And like then everything that they do that then he has to clean up. It's kind of fascinating in some ways that his character is really quite fascinating. That he's a custodian of the school, but he can't use magic to clean it up. And if they hired somebody who could, they would do a lot of these things like almost instantaneously. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of wild. It's interesting because Hogwarts is like a huge castle.
Totally.
Just one dude that's just cleaning up,
walking around with a broom. I mean, there's always that scene in the 7th movie where he's like sweeping up in the aftermath, and it's kind of like, this is an interesting juxtaposition. It's like, but Filch is a very interesting character. He's also quite layered. I mean, he definitely sides with anyone who's going to be lawful. Like, I think he definitely really respects Dumbledore, but then when we get forward and like Umbridge is involved, like his allegiance will shift, like the more strict somebody is going to be. That's why he's also somewhat favorable with Snape. Probably doesn't mind McGonagall either, or really anyone in authority who's going to like exercise it in some way.
Yeah, but in the movie, Filch takes Ron and Harry to Snape.
Right.
And then Dumbledore and McGonagall walk in, and he's like,
not today.
I think Professor McGonagall should deal with them being as like they're in her house, or she's head of their house. And it's just like, because in that moment I was like, yeah, why did Filch take him to Snape? That's kind of...
Yeah, not to go too far into the movie, but I feel like Alan Rickman's Snape isn't quite there for me in the second movie either. Like that scene, it's like, it feels kind of weird. It just isn't quite how I picture it. And then later on, it's more how I kind of picture it.
Yeah, it feels like it's still developing for sure.
But that was where I was with the sense and sensitivity, is just like watching other people's problems here and having Harry like trying to navigate them and not always doing great.
Yeah. We get this very fast introduction to Moaning Myrtle, which, so like the two, I was like, we need more ghosts in Harry Potter Wizards Unite. But the two things that were related, of course, are Peeves and Myrtle. Yeah. We've seen and met Peeves before. Yeah. Myrtle, it's funny because like Hermione is the one that's introducing it, and she ends up well, Peeves is like trying to get her in trouble, but Hermione doesn't want to hurt Myrtle's feelings, even though she kind of believes that she's like really annoying and doesn't want to talk to her. Like that was the whole point. She was trying to avoid Myrtle so that there was any sort of interaction or confrontation. And then Peeves, of course, is just like, nope, you're going for it.
Yeah.
And then she tries to like cover it up because I mean Hermione doesn't want to hurt her feelings.
No.
Like she
is sensitive. Most sensitive of all of our trio for sure. But I think Peeves is an interesting one for me too. Like it wasn't until recently that I even realized in all the times that I had read the books, and I don't know, is he really in the movies, Peeves? I don't quite remember him in the movies. But I think like it wasn't until I know what it was. When we were opening cards and we found a Peeves, and he's like less corporeal, or whatever the right way of saying this is. He has more of a physical presence, and it wasn't until this reread that I actually like found that in the text. For some reason, every time I had read it, I think because I knew what a poltergeist was, it was a ghost, so like I was just picturing him as very similar to all the other ghosts.
Yes.
But in this book, she says like contrasts his physical presence with other ghosts.
That's what the distinction is that unlike the ghost, he can have a physical form.
I didn't know that.
I also
recently.
didn't know that until I like Googled what.
I feel like it was after
research.
the cards, because I was like, is this Peeves? Because it was like all colorful and stuff. Yeah, so it was just something in all my rereads that I.
Because also in Hogwarts Mystery, he's like a ghost like wispiness, but he is colorful as well. Now I'm trying to think. Because the Peeves in Wizards Unite, I think, is the same.
He's got some like
sketching.
red, I think.
Yeah, it's like red. It looks like a clown to me, like red, blue, orange-ish, yellow, whatever. But in Wizards Unite, he's more plump. I mean, not Wizards Unite. Hogwarts Mystery, he's like plumpy, like a little roundy ball type thing. In Hogwarts Mystery, he's like a skinny dancer because he does like a little spin move, and I'm like, oh, okay, you're athletic, I guess.
Yeah. What did you think? Do you have other things that came to your mind?
So something else. So they get invited to this Deathday Party. And so one quote that I wrote from Ron was, "Why would anyone want to celebrate the day that they died?" And that one really struck a chord with me because over the last few years, something I've noticed is a lot of death commemoration on the anniversary that a famous person died.
Right.
So, for example, Robin Williams.
Sure.
I had this like moment of confusion, kind of like if y'all are familiar with the Mandela effect, where the idea is like groups of people misremember like something. So for a famous example is the Berenstain Bears, like the children's book series. How Berenstain is spelled, it's Stain, Stain, not Stein, Stein. So that's one example. But it's named after Nelson Mandela. So like people think or remembering that he died in prison in 1993 or something like that. But he didn't die at that point.
But there was like a large group of people he did die who were like, I thought he was already dead. And they like all had the same memory of it. Yeah.
So going back to Robin Williams, I had a moment where I was like, oh my God, Robin Williams died. And then I was like, wait a second. Was he already dead? Is he dead? And then I realized the reason, it was all because he was trending on Twitter one day. And the reason he was trending is because people were remembering him. And it was his death day. And I was like, wait a second. And so like similar things with like
Smokey
famous
Robinson
people.
died.
So, yeah, we're just, oh my gosh. That's not what Smokey would have wanted. Want. Yeah, so it that stood out to me in particular for that sort of dynamic that seems to exist with like social media commemoration of like remembering things. And it's not just like deaths, it's also like on this day a year ago or 5 years ago like this happened. And so like it's very fascinating.
Facebook plays that up.
It's fascinating that like Ron's kind of like, why would anyone, well, there's two things. One is like, why would anyone celebrate it? But specifically like what makes it different is that he's a ghost. So like he's the one celebrating his own death rather than other people commemorating or remembering him like in honor of him. So it's like also a kind of interesting, weird thing.
It is very, very interesting. I mean, the whole event is kind of funny because it's so normal.
Yeah.
If everyone wasn't a ghost, it'd be like
I
just
wonder
a party.
I wonder if it's a commentary on birthdays.
Yeah.
Right?
And even the way that like he's like, oh, it's like the wailing widow from Kent or whoever came down, and it's just like, this is so funny. It's just a great scene in the sense of like, it's just trying to understand it is really difficult because coming from the perspective of somebody who's alive right now. So it's like, what would it even be like? So I always felt more like Ron, where it's like, is that something you would even celebrate? Like, what a strange thing to celebrate, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe, you know.
Well, going back to your question of like, do ghosts,
it could be mourning.
Can ghosts ever die, like, or just go away? If you think about like, if you have all of eternity to continue existing when now you're in this ghost form, like what else are you gonna do? Black Mirror style, you're just gonna party or
and
throw a party.
You know what's also kind of fascinating is like the way that ghosts exist in Harry Potter. They aren't completely dead, in the sense that like Nearly Headless Nick has emotions, makes choices, and can affect the world around him. Like it's not. That is living to me. I mean, so there's a weird, yes, he's limited in the ways that he can affect. He can't use magic. Neither can Filch, right? Does that mean, what kind of relationship is there in the sense that like...
Well, a difference is
Peeves,
his experience, like, so not being able to taste food or whatever. So it's like a different kind of existence. But it's really interesting because, he can interact with people, with living people. And
he has a personality. I mean, like, it's really kind of strange. I mean, strange in the sense of like, it's
still
curious.
Exists,
it's kind
like
of
without his physical body.
Even now, like when I'm trying to figure out exactly what the ghosts are in like a way of being type of thing, an ontological thing, it's like, well, I don't know.
It's his soul.
Are they really dead? Like
it's his consciousness.
Certainly not the same as Harry's parents, right? I mean,
in a little, right? No,
it's
for
a
sure.
Completely different experience. Because I know later on, after
I
a
should have
main
done research
character,
on Ghost.
a different, well, in the future, a character dies, and Harry kind of hopes that they'll come back as a ghost. And like then I just right now was started to think like, what if they did? Like that would be so strange, like,
No, you made me think about Star Wars. Force Ghost.
Yeah.
Little Anakin.
We are what they go beyond.
I want to see Kylo,
pilot,
or not Kylo. Sorry, Ben Solo.
Spoilers.
Let's see. Oh, okay. So after all of this, we hear the voice.
Can we talk for a second about Draco? I'm sorry to just jump on this, but
that's at the end of my train of thought.
So aggressive. Oh my God, he's like, it's like a group of people, and he's just like, mudbloods, and it's like, dude, he's like
is no
he's like
one
all
doing
glowing
anything?
and stuff, and it's like,
nobody is standing up to him.
Where's your chill, bro?
Well, actually, no. So like in the first sense, Ron was standing up to him. Well, other people were too, but like, y'all have to stop. Okay, this tangent here. Like, okay, one approach. It's hard, but like, just ignore Draco. Just don't give him any power. Don't give him attention. Don't follow him around. Ignore him. Shun him from your frame of existence. What a terrible human.
On this set of rereads with you and the Magical Theory crew here, I'm disliking Draco more than I used to dislike
Draco. Is real bad.
I know I didn't like him, but like this, oh my gosh, this chapter especially, like his one line, and it's like, what is happening, dude? Come on.
Yeah, so Harry hears voices. Rip, tear, kill. Whoa, again. Harry. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware. So, like, we have this... Because you, as a reader, reading this for the first time, you might be like, what? And then Draco kind of, like, splashes you with, like, okay, let me give you some sort of frame of reference of, like, he says, you'll be next, mudbloods. Yeah. Of, like, okay, so mudbloods must be... enemies of the air, whatever that means, like that I mean, all of this, like, we're extending from the previous chapter with mudbloods, and our understanding or our developing understanding of this blood status and relationship within the wizarding world. But it's kind of scary. It's terrifying. You're 12 years old and this happens, and then Draco's just like, oh, you're next. Like, oh my God, go interrogate this boy. Go ask him questions.
We gotta at least ask him some questions here. Jeez. What is going on with this guy? Yeah, he's out of control.
You think that Hogwarts has a school psychologist? Because
it's Peeves. Yeah. They need one.
You need one.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, so what else were you thinking?
No, I mean, not much. I think we're intentionally left at a cliffhanger here of like this event happens, and then the next chapter I think is called The Writing on the Wall, so like obviously we'll get more into it, but yeah, I mean, obviously Harry is having some kind of experience here that Ron and Hermione also, like Lockhart, couldn't follow that experience, so we'll wonder why for people who are hearing the story for the first time or reading it. Yeah. Smells blood, right? He hears the thing say like, I smell blood or whatever, and then it seems there's blood on the wall.
Yeah.
And then also Mrs. Norris is seems to be petrified to some extent. So that's, I mean, it's definitely scary. I mean, I like that. I like it. It is a step different in terms of the intensity of it than the Sorcerer's Stone book. Like all of that is, yes, it's happening, but none of the other students are really like even aware of any of it. But this is the whole school out in the open, like on the wall. So we already are getting Draco being another student able to sort of respond. And it makes it a more nuanced experience, I think, moving forward of like what is going on this year compared to last year, even though Harry is going to try to play the hero, in a somewhat similar way, but it'll also have major differences. Yeah. I'm excited. I mean, it's a great book. I like the book much more than the movie from our rewatch, but
when we were watching the movie segment yesterday, it was interesting to see that there were like similar points that came up in Philosopher's Stone, Sorcerer's Stone, that also were similar in Chamber of Secrets, like how Harry meets Hagrid in Diagon Alley, or Hermione fixing his glasses. Like, so I don't remember if that was actually in the chapters we read, even though it was only a few weeks ago. But at least like in the storytelling in the movie, there were like similar touch points. But again, like we've I don't know what chapter this is, but like
Hagrid
every
does
chapter
find Harry in Nocturne Alley. Yeah, I remember that at least.
Right.
I don't know
because we did
glasses.
mention that. Yeah. But every chapter that we've read so far is like super. This is like if this series were just 2 books, like it's like definitely another side of the coin, like the dark side, where it's just like everything is so dark. So much darker than the first book, where it's like you have this magical world and you hear that.
Well, because the first book is really the introduction to Voldemort as the evil. Like, yes, Quirrell is there, but now it's Malfoy's, and like it's people that like it's a kid in the school being kind of like really sketchy.
What's really interesting to me is I feel like it's kind of, so speaking of like writing on the wall, or it's just like this uncovering of something that has always been beneath. So it's not like out of nowhere Draco like materialized this like hateful view. Right. It was already there because it's part of the fabric of the society. Right. And so the deeper we get into the wizarding world, especially like through this perspective of Harry, and it's just, I mean, because it's Harry, like things just get stepped up each book that we go. But we have this like, it becomes more comfortable, and then like those things kind of come more to the surface, and it's become more explicit in terms of like Draco is just calling out stuff and starting fights and being an awful
100%.
person.
The first book is such a clean and somewhat self-contained story. There is a past and a future, but like there's such a cleanness and shortness to it, really, of like Draco is a character, but he's kind of a plot device in the first book to like move things around and have them remember all and get Quidditch and all this type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But now, like, the introduction of Lucius and the introduction of Lockhart, and there's a depth to it now where it's like these characters are doing things actively, and Harry may or may not interact with it, and that there's this richness to it, and like this story won't be as self-contained. I mean, in some ways she does that very well, like each book does have an arc to it, but this one is more like it's an opening up, whereas the first one is more like, oh, you've stopped evil once again, right? And who knows if it'll come back. Yeah. But that's kind of how I think about the second book. Is just this is where I really start to fall in love with it, because it's just like every chapter is like something new. A Death's Day, what the heck is that? You know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool.
Do you have anything else?
I don't. Yeah, I think I said my quotes.
Excellent.
Everything. Yeah.
Until next time then.
Until next time.
Wand's ready.